Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a truly visionary, radically self-sufficient blueprint for a post-colonial future in Sierra Leone. We're zeroing in on the Kanema district, a place that's proposing something huge, that true independence isn't just about throwing up some solar panels or off-grid microgrids. No, it's about building with entirely new words, completely redefining family structures, and creating a hyper-localized integration of artificial intelligence. It's a massive intellectual shift that will fundamentally challenge how you think about development, tech, and even society itself. If you've ever wondered what it would take to build a society from the absolute ground up without inheriting all the heavy baggage of the past, well, that's exactly what we're unpacking today.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, escaping the colonial imagination. Second, forging a new language. Third, the AI leapfrog. Fourth, tech meets ancestral tradition. Fifth, building the living mansion. And finally, a radically self-sufficient future. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Escaping the colonial imagination. Why replacing rulers isn't enough.
So the foundational premise of all this is that escaping a colonial legacy requires way more than just swapping out foreign administrators for national elites. I mean, think about it. If you just change the people in charge but keep the exact same bureaucratic structures, the same spatial hierarchies, and the same expectations around time and labor, you haven't actually changed the system at all, right? You just changed the faces at the top. The author asserts that coloniality actually survives secretly, hiding in our inherited nouns, categories, and assumptions about reality. Because of this, the post-colonial project has to become an ontological engineering project. Now, ontology is just the study of existence. So we're talking about actively engineering a completely new way of perceiving and interacting with reality itself. You can't just pass new laws. You literally have to change how people exist in that space, how they relate to the land, and how they see their own potential.
Section 2. Forging a new language. The power of linguistic genesis. The reality is you simply cannot build a new world using the colonizer's dictionary. The categories we use to describe our world actually limit what we can build within it. If your language only has words for top-down corporate structures or isolated nuclear families, well, that's all your brain is going to let you build. So the source insists we have to invent completely new linguistic tools. At the heart of this is a concept called verb forging. In this framework, words aren't just passive labels for things that already exist. They are active physical tools. Think of them as linguistic organs, new mental muscles that physically alter neural pathways and actively coordinate community labor to quite literally speak new realities into existence. When you verb forge, you aren't just making up slang, you are forging a highly specific tool to unlock a totally new type of human coordination.
Inherited colonial language traps communities in this incredibly frustrating binary. You either freeze tradition in the past as some kind of ethnographic nostalgia, or you blindly mimic Western developmental models. But linguistogenesis, the creation of entirely new words, shatters that trap. It unleashes this kinetic power that empowers communities to organize totally outside of standard bureaucracies. It frees them from having to choose between being a museum exhibit or a carbon copy of a Western city. Instead, they get to invent a completely third option.
A perfect real-world example of verb forging is the newly coined word play-lo-soda. I love this one. It's this joyful mix of play, logic, and effervescence. It proves that post-colonial reconstruction doesn't have to be rigid, dogmatic, or drowning in red tape. Actually, it should be a creative, almost sacred game. A joyful recombination of tools, myths, and rules until a totally new form of life becomes inhabitable. Building a new society sounds incredibly heavy, right? But play-lo-soda reminds us that experimentation, humor, and joy are absolutely essential if you want to create a world people actually want to live in.
Section 3. The AI leapfrog. Redefining the post-colonial netocrat. Let's see how this brand new language perfectly positions Kanema district to use cutting-edge tech.
When we talk about AI, the author is super clear. We have to avoid algorithmic recolonization. That's what happens when users are reduced to just passive data suppliers for Western tech monopolies. To prevent that, AI has to be deeply localized, interpretive, and completely accountable to the community. It needs to act as a cognitive exoskeleton, a tool you put on to amplify your own local intelligence, not some digital master dictating your life. Just imagine an AI that doesn't try to serve you targeted ads, but instead helps your specific village optimize its microgrid while beautifully preserving your local history. That is the goal here.
Because of this shift, the whole idea of a post-colonial netocrat is completely redefined. We aren't talking about a tech bro with a smartphone trying to build the next unicorn startup. These are community stewards. They actively govern flows of information, energy, and trust to elevate their entire kinship network. Technology is bound by what the author calls a covenantal ecology of responsibility. Basically, the tech only exists to serve, protect, and nourish the ecosystem. The netocrat's job isn't disruption for profit, it's integration for collective survival.
Section 4. Tech meets ancestral tradition, the double transversal transjective quadratic model.
Okay, the source uses a framework with a really intimidating name, the double transversal transjective quadratic model. Yeah, quite a mouthful. But let's just break it down into simple building blocks. This model brilliantly takes traditional ancestral wisdom, combines it directly with the computational speed of AI, adds physical embodied ritual, and folds all of that together into a new state. The result? A radically new dimension of living where the tribal and the technological aren't fighting each other. They work together seamlessly. You don't have to abandon your ancestors to use advanced algorithms, and you don't have to reject tech to keep your cultural roots. They become one unified, powerful system.
And this totally flips Western tech paradigms on their head. Normally, we think of sensors and digital data as tools for a punitive, top-down surveillance state, the classic panopticon. But the Kenya-Magorian model creates an Afro-covenantal panopticon. It uses that same technology for reciprocal visibility and mutual accountability. Everyone is visible, but the goal is to make sure everyone is cared for, not punished. If a sensor knows exactly where you are, it's just so your community can make sure you're safe and have enough resources. It completely redefines the very purpose of data collection.
This quote perfectly grounds all this abstract theory into what the author calls sacramental anthropology. In this reality, daily chores are not mundane. Eschatological refers to the end of the world. So installing a solar panel or fixing a water pump literally becomes a world-saving spiritual liturgy. Maintenance is recognized as the ultimate act of preserving the community's universe for one more day. When you look at fixing a pipe not as a highly annoying chore, but as an act that physically sustains your entire world, it completely transforms your relationship with your environment and your neighbors.
Section 5. Building the living mansion, the physical manifestation of the theory. Let's see what happens when all these new words and technologies hit physical space.
Enter another fascinating verb-forged concept: can we win creation? This is the continuous, active creation of a new hyper-relational kind of family structure. It completely dissolves the isolated nuclear family layout that we're so used to in the West and replaces it with a continuous matrix of shared zones housed in a massive physical space known as the mansion maison. It's an architectural shift reflecting a deep social shift. You aren't just living next door to people, you are actively co-creating a massive shared kinship network every single day through shared labor and ritual.
And the mansion maison is definitely not just a big house or some luxury real estate. It's basically a self-contained thermodynamic engine. It generates its own off-grid power, manages its own water through automated permaculture, processes data via localized edge computing AI, acts as a spiritual center, and shelters multiple generations under one massive roof. It physically decouples the family from fragile, centralized state systems, allowing them to rely entirely on each other. It's an incredibly robust hub that proves these wild theoretical concepts can actually take root in the dirt.
Section 6. A radically self-sufficient future. Sovereign sufficiency in kinema. Let's look at what this independence means for the future.
Now, to be clear, the end goal of this incredibly detailed blueprint is not about total isolation or retreating into some doomsday bunker mentality. It's about sovereign sufficiency. That means cultivating enough distributed local capacity, whether that's energy, food, data, or language, so the community can negotiate with the outside world from a position of absolute strength. It ensures they can survive and thrive even during major global infrastructural disruptions. They aren't hiding from the world, they're just making sure the world can never hold them hostage.
This quote is just so powerful because it reminds us that true sovereignty isn't a political status you go begging for on the global stage. It's an ontological reality you engineer from the ground up, using your own local soil, your own solar cells, and your very own forged vocabulary. The word literally builds the world. When you can define your own reality, generate your own power, and sustain your own people, you have achieved a profound level of freedom that absolutely no colonial or bureaucratic system can ever take away.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. We've seen how inventing new language can theoretically construct an entirely new, self-sufficient society from scratch. So,
What unseen capacities are hiding in your own life right now, just waiting for you to invent the exact right word to unlock them? Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.